Welcome to Vocab Unit 2. Your first root is im, in, eel, or ear, and all of those mean not. Your first word is incompatible, which is an adjective. It means unable to exist together peacefully or not easy to combine harmoniously. You've got a synonym of antagonistic and antonyms of compatible and harmonious. Your helpful hint here is important. When describing people, this word indicates personality conflicts. So you see in the picture over here, there are two people who aren't getting along, so they might be incompatible. Then when describing objects, it suggests that the items cannot be used together, such as an incompatible phone and charger. So you have those two different senses. One is the personality conflicts, so it would be a problem if you were incompatible with your other group members and you had to work on a project together. And it would also be a problem if you were trying to charge your phone, but your charger was incompatible. The sample sentence is, even though the musicians were wonderfully talented together, the band had to break up because their personalities were incompatible, so they didn't get along, so they had to break up. Your next word is indiscriminate, which is also an adjective, and it means done at random without careful thought or careless. Your synonyms are non-selective, haphazard, thoughtless, and unthinking, and your antonyms are selective or thoughtful. Your sample sentence is, the city was stunned by the rise in indiscriminate violence. No single group or subsection of the student population was targeted specifically. You often hear the word indiscriminate with violence, and it does mean violence without any good reason behind it. So that's why you have this picture here of someone with a knife who might be stabbing people indiscriminately. So it definitely has that sense of being careless and not paying attention to who you're affecting or what your environment is. Your next root is ad, which means toward. And your first word is advent, which is a noun. It means a coming into view, use, or being, or an arrival. So I think an arrival is the easiest way to remember this word. You have a bunch of synonyms here: arrival, birth, dawn, appearance, onset, and two antonyms, departure and end. The helpful hint, which is also your picture here, is that an advent calendar gives a countdown to the arrival of Christmas. So it counts down until the arrival of Christmas, which would happen after the 24th. Your sample sentence is, the advent of the mobile phone created a new social system in which it became much easier to be in contact with friends and family. So you can talk about the advent of new technology, like in the sample sentence. You could talk about the advent of a season, like the advent of fall, or anything else that is arriving or coming into being. Your next word is advocate, which is a verb, and it means to speak or write in favor of, or to support or urge by argument, or to recommend publicly. So I often think of advocating for something as arguing for something, or this is a good one too, to speak or write in favor of something. So you're kind of fighting to get something done if you're advocating for something or advocating for someone. Your synonyms are champion, promote, endorse, or espouse. And your antonym is oppose. Your sample sentence is, after the rise in motorcycle injuries, many advocated for the mandatory use of helmets. So that means many people were speaking or writing in favor of the mandatory use of helmets. You'll also hear people talking about advocating for themselves. So if you need help on an assignment for school, for example, and you talk to your teacher about it to set up extra help, you are advocating for yourself to get yourself the help that you need. And you have this picture over here of someone with a microphone who may be advocating for an issue. Your next root is anti, which means against. And your first word is antipathy, which is a noun. Antipathy means disgust, abhorrence, detestation, or hatred. So I would just remember hatred as a really good synonym for antipathy. You use it the exact same way. So if you feel hatred towards someone, you also feel antipathy towards someone. And you see these people fighting over here. It looks like they are feeling antipathy towards each other. Your synonyms are aversion, loathing, repulsion, and antagonism. Your antonyms are admiration, appreciation, approval, and esteem. Your sample sentence is, the fan in the Yankees hat at Fenway Park could sense the antipathy that most of his neighbors in his section felt toward him based on the insults and the shower of peanut shells from every direction. So you would definitely sense others' antipathy if you were cheering for the Yankees in Fenway Park. Your next word is antithesis, which is the direct opposite. This word can be a little bit tricky to use. I would think of it in terms of one thing being the antithesis of something else. So heaven is the antithesis of hell over here with this image. Your synonyms are contrast and converse, and your antonym is same. Your sample sentence states, even though they were identical twin sisters, Maud was Belle's antithesis, and their personalities could not have been further apart. So you have that phrase, Maud was Belle's antithesis. That's a good way of saying it. You could also say Maud was the antithesis of Belle. Your next root is ick, which means having to do with. Your first word is bombastic, which is an adjective. That's kind of a fun word. It means using impressive sounding but mostly meaningless words to try to seem important. So you could talk about someone using bombastic language, or you could talk about the bombastic speaker. It generally tends to be an insult. It's not a compliment to call someone bombastic. It means that they're trying to be impressive sounding when they speak, but they're kind of failing. Your synonyms are overblown, pompous, pretentious, and highfalutin, and your antonyms are humble, quiet, and reserved. Your sample sentence states, many voters were put off by the senator's bombastic speech, in which he seemed to think that his fancy talk would make him seem intelligent. Your next word is exotic, which means, as an adjective, not familiar or native to a specific place. And it can also mean unusual or strange. Your synonyms are foreign and odd, and your antonyms are native and normal. Your helpful hint is what we might consider exotic is relative. Sushi is more exotic to residents of Woburn, for instance, than it is to residents of Tokyo. So exotic tends to describe things that are foreign or interesting or rare because they're from somewhere else. So this guy over here is an exotic bird, right? He's not a bird that you would find walking down the street in Burlington. Your sample sentence says, Alicia liked predictability and rarely tried any of the exotic restaurants in her city. So exotic restaurants would serve food from different countries. If you are a picky eater, you probably would not like exotic restaurants very much. Your root here is meant, which means condition of. Your first word is embodiment, which is a noun, and it means an example, representation, or expression of something. It's most often used in the form of a person is the embodiment of a trait. So here's Martin Luther King over here, and he's surrounded by a lot of words that he could be considered the embodiment of. So you could say Martin Luther King is the embodiment of courage, right? He symbolizes courage because he led the civil rights movement even in the face of opposition. You could say that Martin Luther King is the embodiment of justice because he cared about justice, he fought for justice, right? So he's the embodiment of these traits because he represents them so fully. Your synonyms are manifestation, encompassment, or symbol. I think symbol is probably the easiest to remember. And your antonyms are original or exclusion. Your sample sentence states, the soccer team was the embodiment of sportsmanship as they voluntarily congratulated the team that defeated them after the long, grueling game. So they are the embodiment of sportsmanship because they show that trait so much. You could also say that the soccer team embodied sportsmanship. Similarly, you could say that Martin Luther King embodied justice or courage. Your next word is enhancement. It's a noun, and it means a raising of quality, value, or degree. Your synonyms are improvement or increase, and your antonym is reduction. Your sample sentence says, this car salesman tried to increase the price of the car by adding enhancements that the customer didn't want. So this this word, if you think back to the root with condition of, enhancement is the condition of being enhanced. So if you enhance a car, you make it better, or you add enhancements to the car. So this car over here has had some enhancements to make it look more decorated. Your next root is neo, which means new, and you'll remember from last unit that we had the root nov, which also meant new, so now we have two different roots that mean new. And your first word is neologism. It's a noun, and it is a new word, meaning, usage, or phrase, or more generally, the introduction or use of new words or new senses of existing words. So I think really easy way to remember it is if you look over here, these are all neologisms because they're all words that either are new or have new meanings, right? So the word friend over here didn't used to be a verb, right, until Facebook, and now you friend someone. Blog and tweet are new words. Share has come to mean something different with social media, as have post and chat, right? So these are all examples of neologisms that have come out of new emerging technology. You can also use it with the second definition in talking about coming words being made new words in general. Your synonyms are buzzword or coinage, and your antonym is archaism, which is an old word that's not used anymore. Your sample sentence says, with the advent of Twitter, hashtag became a neologism that oozed its way into America's vocabulary. Your next word is neophyte. It's a noun, and it means a beginner or novice. So you'll remember novice from last unit. Neophyte is a synonym for that word. And your other synonyms are amateur, fledgling, and rookie, and your antonyms are expert and veteran. Your sample sentence says, most people presumed that Dale was a neophyte when they watched him golf, but in fact, he had simply been a terrible golfer for a long, long time. Poor Dale. So this is probably a neophyte over here on the softball field, right? It looks like she's pretty young, pretty new to the sport. The root post means after. Your first word is postmeridium, which means afternoon. This we almost never use, but we shorten to PM. So if you were to say 2 p.m., what you're actually saying is a shortened version of 2 postmeridium. I like that this word is in the same unit as bombastic because I feel like postmeridium is a bombastic phrase to use because you can just say PM. So an antonym is morning, and your helpful hint is what I just told you. The abbreviation for postmeridium is PM. School concludes at 2 postmeridium. Your sample sentence: the train conductor was quirky and would announce the arrival times by adding postmeridium, even though it was obviously afternoon. Posterior is an adjective, which means situated behind or at the rear of. So this picture is showing the posterior of the car. And the second definition is coming after in time, later, subsequent. So posterior events would be events after other events. Your synonyms are hind, hindmost, and dorsal, which all mean behind, and your antonyms are front or anterior. Your sample sentence states, in the battle, the front lines took heavy casualties, while the posterior companies lost hardly any soldiers. So it was safer to be a soldier toward the posterior or toward the back. Your last root for this unit is ver, which means truth. Your first word is aver, which is a verb, and it means to assert or affirm as true. Your synonyms are avouch, avow, profess, and your antonyms are contradict, deny, repudiate. So you see a pinky swear over here, so they are, over here it seems like they are averring that something that they said was true by pinky swearing. So I would say like, I aver that I am telling the truth, or I aver that I really saw this person not committing a crime at this time. So you're claiming or swearing that something's true. Your sample sentence is, the sincerity with which Donna averred her innocence made her parents believe that she actually hadn't broken the vase. So she averred her innocence. You could also say she averred that she was innocent. She swore that it was true. Your next word is veracity, which is a noun, and it means complete honesty or truth. I like to think of veracity as truthfulness. And your second definition is an assumption that something is true, usually on reasonable grounds or probable evidence. So truthfulness in general, or the belief or assumption that something is true. Your synonyms are credibility, integrity, accuracy, and authenticity, and your antonyms are falsehood or falsity. Your helpful hint is that ver is a Latin root, which means that your French, Spanish, and Italian words for true are all very similar to that root ver. Your sample sentence says, a good English teacher always checks the veracity of the essays that he or she receives. Don't plagiarize. So you'll often with veracity talk about checking the veracity of someone's statement, so checking to make sure it's true. You might also talk about doubting the veracity of something if you don't trust that it's true, or you could talk about trusting the veracity of something if you do trust that something is true. So again, truthfulness is a really helpful word to remember what veracity means and how to use it. All right, that is all of your Unit 2 words.